Hey, what's good, guys? Clutch and Entertainment here, back in another video. And for today's video, we're talking about the Houston Texans. And this could be kind of a hypothetical type of video. There really hasn't been too much concrete evidence or anything like that about the Texans being interested. But I'm sure if this player is officially put on the trade block or at least talked about in trades, I'm almost 100, pretty much 1,000% sure Houston would at the very least inquire about him. And this player is Saints cornerback Marshon Lattimore. Now, Marshon Lattimore has been the talks of quite a few trades recently, actually. A few hypotheticals put out by Bleacher Report. Now, I mean, of course, it's Bleacher Report. They're probably just made up for clicks and views. But then things get interesting when even more pages like you're probably not going to really know this by heart, but NFL trading blog, I don't know, something like that. But his point is, he's been talked about possibly being a trade candidate by many different news outlets. I don't want to say necessarily sources, but by news outlets that have pretty good, I guess, intel on around the league, what's happening. And it does make a lot of sense for New Orleans. They did just draft cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama in the second round. I personally believe Houston was going to target him, but ended up going with Lassiter because, I mean, obviously Kool-Aid was taken before him, but yeah. So they just drafted Kool-Aid, and they owe Lattimore a lot of money. He's on a pretty hefty deal, and as we know, the Saints' cap situation has been pretty horrible over the last few years, pretty much over the last 10 years. I feel like they've almost always been in a cap hell, it seems. So even more so now, especially with AK being really high on the books. You just paid Derek Carr all of that money. Michael Thomas, I believe you still owe him a little bit of money. You're going to have to pay Chris Olave soon. They're going to be tied up around the books for a long time. And Marshon Lattimore, he slowly but surely helps free up some cap space. And with them drafting Kool-Aid McKinstry, I feel like Kool-Aid can definitely be a number one in this league. Maybe not right away, obviously, but I feel like they were possibly drafting Marshon Lattimore's future replacement. Because let's not forget, the Saints, they also do have, I think it's Paul Adebo, or it's either him or some other guy who's not just some guy. He could probably play valuable snaps for them as well as a cornerback too, so it makes very much sense. As of right now, the Saints have three quality starting cornerbacks: Marshon Lattimore, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and I believe it's Adebo. And having those three, I mean, yes, teams want the most, the most best players you can get, but I mean, especially when you can get off the books, get a pretty significant draft pick for a player, I think it makes a lot of sense for the Saints from a cap perspective and from a competition perspective. And for Houston, I think it makes a ton of sense for them to make a move for him, just on the simple fact that you're going all in. You gave Daniil Hunter a bag. You gave Azeez Al-Shaair a bag. You traded for Stephon Diggs. You're making all these moves. You got Joe Mixon. You signed him to an extension, to a new deal. You're making all these moves. Why not continue to go all in? Especially when it really won't tie you up financially. Because I feel like if we were to trade for him, let's just say in a hypothetical trade, Houston gives up a third-round pick for cornerback, 28-year-old Marshon Lattimore. And I feel like the Saints would accept that deal. I think they would also pay probably a good chunk of his salary. I could see them definitely paying maybe half of his deal, at least. I could definitely see at least them paying half of his contract. And for a financial standpoint for us, I think that'd be phenomenal because I think he's making somewhere around $16 million a year. Might be a little bit more, actually. But last time I saw something, I think it was $16 million. But yeah, that would be a very, very interesting aspect to the trade if Houston was to go along / look into it. But if you can get New Orleans to pay, let's say it is 16. Let's say we get New Orleans to pay $8 million of that. We only owe Marshon Lattimore $8 million of our own, and I think we still have like around, I think it was around $20 million after the Stephon Diggs deal. So I think we still have around $20 million in space right now, and obviously we can still make more by doing some more releases, different restructures and stuff. Cap, as we know, it's pretty easily manageable, except if you're the Saints, because I mean they're like negative almost 100, I think. And we're in the positives plus 20. They're in minus 100 or something like that. So there's that. But Houston, they're in a great spot. Young quarterback. They've been going all in all offseason. And what's one of your biggest question marks? For me, I think it's cornerback 2. And Marshon Lattimore, he's a cornerback 1. You have 2 cornerback 1s in the same defense on, for me, I wouldn't say a weak secondary, but a secondary that lacks top-end specialty. Let's just say that. Because I feel like we have a ton of depth in the secondary. Depth isn't a problem. It's just starters, I think. We have a lot of good depth pieces. Jalen Petrie, I don't want to say he's a for sure granted starter, but he's a good piece to have on your defense. Jimmy Ward, same thing. Especially with his age, I feel like he's a great piece to have on your defense. MJ Stewart, obviously isn't a starter, but he's a great depth piece on your defense. Same thing with Eric Murray. Same thing with Jeff Okudah. I think he could be a cornerback 2 for us. Would I bank on it? No. Would I rely on him to be cornerback 2 when we're trying to compete for a Super Bowl right now by going all in? No. Same thing with, what's the other cornerback name? The guy from Jacksonville, CJ Henderson. CJ Henderson, same thing with him. Do I think he could be a cornerback 2? Now, him, not really. I don't think he could be a cornerback 2 for us. But he does provide pretty good depth. And, I mean, that's pretty much the whole thing about our secondary. Great depth, but lacks really true starting level players outside of Derek Stingley. Now, Derek Stingley, we're lucky to have him. I mean, he's arguably a top 10 for me, top 6, top 7 cornerback in the NFL. And then adding Marshon Lattimore to that, I feel like that just takes your secondary from probably being maybe in the 15, 16 range, somewhere around there, to probably into the top 10. When you have 2 elite cornerbacks around in a room that has a lot of depth, I feel like that's a recipe for success. But yeah, I feel like Marshon Lattimore, if he is to be made available, which I do think he will be made available, I think it's a no-brainer for Houston, as long as the contract and everything matches up, as long as New Orleans is willing to pay a little bit of that. I would be fine giving up a third. A second, I'm not exactly too sure. I know Marshon Lattimore is an elite player, but Nick Caserio does seem like he loves his draft picks to keep around and play with and still continue to build up the team. Second round pick, I think I would still possibly do it, considering, I mean, our second round pick this year, oh no, is it the Vikings? I think we own the Vikings pick this year, so actually it isn't even our own. Yeah, I think I'll just stick with the third, and if they do want more, give them a third this year and maybe a fourth next year or something like that. I don't know, try to make it work without giving up anything more than a third plus other mid-round picks. But I definitely do think Marshon Lattimore makes a ton of sense for us. He helps improve this defense, and he makes what's arguably going to be a top 10 defense turn into, for me, probably a top 5, maybe even a top 4 defense. I mean, you have elite cornerbacks at 1 and 2, both that are easily cornerback 1s in the NFL on most teams. You have one of the best pass rushing duos in the NFL. You have a pretty good linebacker core with Azeez Al-Shaair and Christian Harris. And your safety room is not the best, but you do have some guys who have potential. I mean, Jalen Petrie, I'm not going to write him off just yet. He did have a little bit of a down year, but he's still learning his position, especially in his defense. I feel like he should have a bounce back year. Then, of course, you drafted Kalen Bullock, who has elite range, elite all over the field type of. It reminds me a little bit of Kyle Hamilton with his range. Obviously, he's not the same size. He's not the same weight class. He's not the same player whatsoever. He's not going to be the same impact in the run game down in the box. But just from a pure range aspect, like you see Kyle Hamilton, that one clip when he was in college in Notre Dame. That one clip where he was on one side of the field and he got back all the way to the other sideline in a matter of like 5 or 6 seconds, pretty fast. That really reminds me of Bullock, and I think he's going to be a pretty good player for us. I don't see him starting right away, but he could definitely slot in maybe mid-season, start getting more starting snaps. But that's not the point of the video. I mean, it's just Marshon Lattimore. But yes, Marshon Lattimore, I think Houston should be interested and will be interested. But let me know y'all guys' thoughts down below in the comments. Would you guys trade for Marshon Lattimore if you were the Houston Texans and Nick Caserio? And if so, what's the most you would give for him? And how do you envision him slotting into the defense? He is 28. He is already on a contract. I'm not too sure if he would want another contract, but if he does, I'm sure he can really work some money around, maybe for a 2-year deal or something. I don't know. I'm sure. I'm not a cap magician. I don't know how that stuff works, but I'm sure you can fit it in somehow. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about the topic and about the video. It's been Clutch City Entertainment, and I hope you guys have a good day. Peace.